Hey everyone, Eric Watson here, freelance writer, player of games, writer, boards, recorder videos, and tabletop role-playing aficionado. Welcome to another DM's Guild review, my written and video view series. We'll take a look at the adventures and supplemental material at the Dungeon Masters Guild website. With this video, we'll be reviewing the magic item book, Astinus Ledger of Unknowns, designed by Gabriel Hatcher for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. This review has been sponsored by the publisher, and a review copy has been provided for the purposes of this review. If you're interested in a sponsored review, please reach out via email, Twitter, or Discord, or on my submission form at roguewatson.com. And if you enjoy the content, consider using my affiliate links for your online shopping and supporting me via patreon.com/roguewatson. Welcome to my first official Dragonlance third-party review. I'm very excited because for once I actually have some history and knowledge of a D&D product. Obviously I've been running 5e and doing 5e for 6, 7, 8 years and whatever it's been since pretty much its inception. And yet I was kind of coming in as almost a newborn babe when it came to the Forgotten Realms. I knew some history from, playing video games like Neverwinter Nights and Baldur's Gate, but for actual RPG and novel knowledge, I didn't really have all that. But Dragonlance is the one that I know. Dragonlance I actually read and devoured back in the... I was late to the party for sure. I think it was like late 90s when I was actually going through Dragonlance, and then read it for years and years and years afterwards. And then, but at this point it's been probably 15 years since I last read a Dragonlance novel, and I don't think they'd published one for a long time. So I had to actually look up who Astinus was. I did not remember, but yet I really enjoyed all of the various connections to culture and history and factions and locations within Krynn. So this is a magic item book that includes trinkets, magic items, and basically legendary artifacts that are all tied to the world of Krynn, which is the setting for Dragonlance, and of course the upcoming or now released Dragonlance 5e campaign book. Even though it is Astinus' book of or Ledger of Unknowns, it is actually technically written by a just random traveler named Jacob Billstone, who came across this mysterious ledger. And I really like this flavoring because a lot of times we have so-and-so's thing of whatever, and you never really hear from so-and-so except from like the very beginning preface. And that's a complaint I have for a lot of these books where they try to inject some personality into it and never do. This designer thankfully does exactly what I'm looking for when it comes to those kind of books, because we do get that sidebar commentary listed throughout this entire book. And it's this person named Jacob Billstone who has found this ledger and then is copying it and then growing increasingly paranoid about the information he's learned and about people coming after him. And it kind of tells this interesting little story. And then he also jots and makes little notes about all these various objects and items throughout, which is pretty fun. And it actually goes through a pretty fun little satisfying conclusion at the end, which I thought kind of brought it around and felt very Dragonlance-y in a cool way, which is the gods are always very mysterious and kind of like Greek gods in a lot of ways, where they can take human form and kind of jack with you a lot. So I thought it was really well done. So thumbs up to just that whole presentation of it, because that the players never get that, right? They're never going to get any of this stuff. This is purely for the person, the DM, the person who's reading this actual material, and it makes it really entertaining and fulfilling to get that little side story while reading your magic item book. So the book is divided into 3 portions: Minutia, Arcana, and Mystica. Minutia are just trinkets. I'd say just trinkets. I mean, trinkets are good, but that's what it is. So trinkets, which were all the way back in the player's handbook, are items that are interesting, maybe even have some minor magic to them, but they don't confer any real mechanical benefit in any way. So the idea is you can just almost treat these as random loot tables, or even starting items for level 1 PCs, just kind of little memorable little random shit they would have. That and the nice thing about these trinket tables, which is what Wizards has done, is throughout a lot of the major 5e campaign books, you would have trinkets designed specifically for that region. Like Icewind Dale has one for the Frostmaiden, or Tomb of Annihilation has one for Chult. So they would be a whole list of these trinkets just to add more flavor to the loot tables and to just kind of random ass items that players can find. And it's the exact same thing with this one. I haven't actually, admit right now, as of this moment, I have not looked at the Dragonlance 5e book, so it may have its own trinket table, it may not, but in any case, this is a very good trinket table that does just an awesome job of providing cool things that would be tied to that world. So like a shell engraved by a Demornesti, which is like I think Kryn's version of the Sea Elves, the sawed-off horn of a Minotaur, a gnomish life quest scroll, or the worn boots of a Kender, or maybe even like a dusty black cloak that once belonged to Raistlin Magir, one of the most infamous characters in all of Dragonlance lore. So very cool if your characters are into Dragonlance, or if you, the DM, just want to be able to provide these cool little flavor items. You know, these could be like level 1 starting items, or just added to the loot table for random things, or you could even break off entire quests for them. But I appreciate it. Also, if you notice, this is not just a standard D50 table of items that would be like the 1-sentence descriptions. These are full like paragraphs of items. So I actually like that. Even though organizational wise, I tend to prefer tables because they're easier to flip through and look at and glean that information from. But in this case, I think this is the perfect example of when maybe not to use tables, because this is just pure flavor text, and I really appreciate that. Then we move on to probably the most important section of the book, which is Arcana. These are, I believe I counted over 40 of these magic items that, again, have that flavoring to the universe of Dragonlance and Kryn specifically. Maybe not so much as the trinkets. Some of them feel like they could, technically be used anywhere, but some of them do a really good job of tying in. The one I think I liked the most was the Staff of the Draconian. So the Draconian armies are these humanoid dragon creatures, kind of like a dragonborn or a half dragon, that were created in dark rituals via dragon eggs, and they became shock troopers for the villains, basically. And the cool twist they have is all of them, there's different kinds depending on what dragon they were made out of, and they all have different like death bursts that happen when they are die. So some of them explode, other ones can like turn to stone, some of them like just pool out acid, and this staff lets you basically have all those powers in one, which is very, very cool. Other ones that I thought were really cool ideas, the Fangs of the Dragon Blade. I write that page number down, 24. You plant this curved blade into the ground, and it actually sprouts like this tree that has these like blade on its like limbs, and it attacks everything in sight, including you. So essentially you've got a turret that you can like plant somewhere and then back up, and it just goes nuts and attacks everybody. I thought that was really cool. The Skelepack, is this a Discworld reference? Because I love Discworld. It's my absolute favorite. And this reminds me of the luggage in, I believe it's the very first Discworld novel, actually, with except it's got little skeletal feet that run around, so I thought that was pretty cute. For impressive content, we've got the Carcanet, I'm not actually sure to pronounce that, Carcanet, of Fate, which is a necklace that's, I picture almost like a pillbox, but in necklace form, and it's supposed to have 100 different ones, although you roll the dice, you roll 5d20 to see how many it actually has, and I guess that determines which ones perhaps you are ending up with getting. But it's just one of those classic magic items that is incredibly versatile, because you have so many different options here, and it's kind of wild magic table where it's, some of them are very, very awesome like in combat, and others are useless in combat, but may just become kind of flavorful. You grow older, you shrink or something, gain telepathy for a week. Like it's absolute chaos in terms of what it gives you. But I believe it's not supposed to be random. I believe you're supposed to be able to know at least the symbol of what you get, and maybe you can determine from there like what the hell that actually means. But I like it for just the sheer amount of the fact that it takes 2-3 full pages to figure out. There's a lot that don't have anything to do with combat, like this book that can copy other books, or there's a bag that you can like whisper something into, and it will like remember like what you said. Some of those could almost be trinkets, I feel like, but I appreciate that not everything is just magic weapons and swords. In fact, swords and armor and shields, but that's actually probably the minority here. It's a lot of more magic items. Now, it's not all good news, unfortunately. There are a lot of items that I think could have used a little bit more time in the oven. When I read through it and I have questions about how this item works, that's a problem. So an example of this is the Quiver of Concealment. A cool idea. It reminds me of like Assassin's Creed style. You've got like this, crossbow bolt thing attached to your arm, and it can't be found even through magical means, and you can fire off a crossbow by using a command word, but it doesn't say like, okay, what is the damage there? What is the attack roll that we make? Like, what kind of crossbow is this? So it leaves a lot of questions. Another example of one that I had a problem with was there's armor, there's Plate of the Fetch, and it's got this mirror on it, and it says, anyone looking in the mirror on the front of the armor will be attacked by a fetch, which this fetch is a creature that's Unfortunately, it has 0 description, but it does have a stat block that will attack the one reflected until they've been out of sight for the mirror for 3 rounds. Okay, so does this thing roll initiative? Like, when does it attack? So can it leave? It has a speed of 10 feet. Can it leave its mirror like Samara from The Ring, like pulling itself out, or is it stuck in the thing? Like, there's a lot of questions about how this works. That's a unique, cool item, but you need to be very firm about, okay, does it effectively summon this creature, or does it stay in the thing? And can somebody just, turn around and walk behind somebody? Because D&D has weird facing rules about that. It's like Medusa gaze. Can they just kind of opt to blind themselves and not see it? It's a neat idea, but it needed a lot more rules about it. Another weird one is Fizban's Fabulous Wand. It's an artifact level wand. The only thing it does is allow you to cast spells that you already know without components, and then it just casts a random spell. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think most spellcasters already cast spells without components via their spellcasting focus, right? And like 99% of everybody is using a spellcasting focus, and nobody gives a shit about having to remember about components in any way. I guess technically, if it's a paid component, like you're casting Resurrection or was it Chromatic Orb, or a few spells do use like paid components with monetary value, which you are supposed to use. But then it says the spell cast will be random out of any spell they know, and the caster will not know what spell it is before they're already casting. So you would just have to roll like a random one of all the spells you know. So that one feels very, especially for an artifact level item, that didn't feel like it was powerful enough, and it already came with the huge detriment that you don't even know what fucking spell you're going to cast. It's just a random ass spell. Again, cool idea for an item, but it needed to be rebalanced and redesigned in that, okay, maybe it lets you cast a random spell from your thing, but it maybe doesn't use a spell slot. That would be huge. It's still a huge detriment because you don't know what kind of spell you're going to cast at what moment you might need it, but you could just cast a free spell, and then of course you would have to limit it, maybe only up to a certain level, or maybe once per day or something like that. But I think there's some really good ideas in here, but a lot of them just maybe needed another pass in the balance room or needed more rules. A very weird one is the Rings of Avarice, which has multiple paragraphs of description of how this ring was used with like battles between wizards, and then doesn't actually include any firm rules about what it does if you wear the ring. Like, I read this whole thing like 3 times. I was like, okay, so what happens like mechanically if somebody wears this ring? Because it just mentions the fact that like, it clouds, it dampers your emotions, and does like, okay, does that mean it casts the like calm emotion spell on you? Like, you gotta be firm with these things, because this is a game we're playing and there needs to be rules. So I appreciate that there's a lot of great descriptive text on here, but maybe there's a few of them where the designer went a little too far into that descriptions, not enough into the actual firm rules of the item itself, which leads us to the third group, which is Mystica, which actually plays into the designer's strengths, which are purely descriptive items with no stats or mechanical things whatsoever. So the idea is, and there's 20 of these, I believe. The idea here is these items are supposed to be like adventure hooks. In fact, it even mentions on the cover page trinkets, magic items, and story hooks. Now, yes, I guess they could be considered story hooks. Their ideas, if you're basing your story around a certain item that has some very vague rumors or descriptions about it, then sure, that could work. Examples include like a strange stone, this Heart of the Nevermind that's found at the top of Mount Nevermind that can jack with like technology and magic. A beetle found by Raceland when he was taking the test of high sorcery. I did get the Kaz reference. That was a cool series of Minotaur books. It's like Minotaurs versus Ogres with a really awesome, just classic Dragonlance hero at the center of it. A creepy egg found at the bottom of the ocean that has like kind of tendril. It's the size of a house and has tendrils like kind of coming on the side of it or something. Neat ideas for legendary items or rumored artifacts or things. I think I would have. I like the idea. It's cool. I think I would have preferred if maybe the designer had done fewer of these and just expanded the best ones into more substantial adventure hook ideas. Like, hey, here's the thing, and then here's a sample quest. Like, so and so hires you to go down there and do this, or this person needs you to transport this item here, or this item has been supposedly found by this group of factions and we need to get it back, or give me some kind of more, go a little one step further in giving me that proper adventure idea story seed And I think I would have liked that more than just kind of giving me a lot of these different items and then kind of stopping short of actually suggesting what I could possibly do with those items. And that is, and then technically there's these 3 creatures that come at the end of each of these different items. I guess they're designed to be the ones that actually sell these things, which is neat. They actually have their stat blocks too, so that's kind of a neat little bonus thing. And then the third one that actually has the Mysticas is this weird, like, crazy immortal creepy bat creature, which is interesting. So that's a neat little addition there. But for the most part, you're gonna get these magic items. All right, let's go over my pros and cons for Astinus' Ledger of Unknowns. Pro: over 100 magic items and trinkets. It's actually not true. It's technically like 90 something. It'd be over 100 if you include the mystic items, I guess. All 3 sections equal over 100 items. That's a ton of content. And for the most part, it's actually is really good content. I know I spent a good amount of time ragging on some of the items, but overall, the good to bad ratio is very positive. It's very thumbs up on most of these items. There's still a lot of really cool ideas. And even the ones that I thought needed more time in the oven, they still had cool ideas to where I, as a DM, could go through and like, all right, I can kind of tweak this and change this how I need it to work till it has more firm rulings. But the idea itself is very cool and gives me the ideas that I need. Pro: excellent use of Dragonlance locations, characters, and history. This was a big thing I was looking for as somebody who enjoys Dragonlance, who loves that world, who actually has some knowledge of that world compared to having no knowledge of a lot of the D&D worlds, universes, and characters. And I loved that the designer seems to very much know their shit when it comes to all this Dragonlance stuff, and is probably best reflected in the trinkets and the Mystica. The magic items also decently reflected, but a lot of them could be used in, basically any kind of setting without much change. I don't know if that's a consequence of just having to have items that have more mechanical stats to them, and thus maybe they kind of lose some of their flavor, but some of them do, like the Staff of the Draconian. They do a really cool job of including both the lore and then having some cool abilities tied to that as well. Pro: also with the flavorful sidebar commentary and all these little comments that are written on here on the side. I really like all that. There's some minor presentation issues with, some of the sidebars don't quite mesh in there very well. I kind of wish the subheadings for each item was a different color. It very much looks a little too black and white in a lot of sections, but I do love the commentary. It does exactly what I want it to do, which is make it more fun for the person reading this information to enjoy it and kind of learn a little bit of a story and flavor, even outside of what this material is presenting to you with the story of Astinus and then this poor little Jacob Billstone character. So I thought that was a really good framework for presenting this information. I'm very much in favor of that commentary there. My cons, I kind of just combine them into one big con, which is there were some underdeveloped magic items that needed more concise rules or rebalancing, or in the case of that one ring, like needed some kind of rule completely because there's really like no rules in there whatsoever. Again, that's probably only a fourth of the items when we're looking at, nearly 50 items. That's still a great ratio, but I'm here telling you, everything you need to know about this product. And there were a number of items that I thought needed to be either fixed up or edited or maybe slightly redesigned to make it work, or just have firmer rules about what it was presenting to you. Final verdict: Astinus' Ledger of Unknowns features dozens of expertly themed Dragonlance trinkets and magic items, though the great lore keeper should have spent a bit more time designing some of them. Thank you to everyone for watching this video review. You can see my written review at roguewatson.com. You can watch more reviews and follow our own D&D adventures here on my YouTube channel and support my work at patreon.com/roguewatson. Thank you.